Washington to talk about stormwater and this Clyde Allen Drive project. So we got some things I want to talk about with everybody, just so you have an understanding of why we have to do this, where we're going to do this. And I know that the thing that everybody's concerned about is what it's going to cost and how are we going to pay for this. So I got some good news, but we'll get to there shortly. Okay. So once you, Julie, if you want to switch the screen up there.
Give me a moment.
There we go. Okay, so this is the agenda I want to go through tonight. Just want to do some brief introductions of the people here in the town that are involved in this project. Then I want to talk some about the stormwater utility and how we use the stormwater utility to do these projects and how it's going to help us with this project. And then I'll talk about the funding and the cost estimate we have for this project and how we're going to pay for it. And then we'll go through the technical details of the stormwater issues in the area and the Clyde Allen Drive project specifically. And then we'll touch on the schedule, and then I'll open it up to questions for everybody. Okay. So I'm Dave Allerton. I'm the Public Works Director here in the town and the town engineer. So we are managing this project. On my right over here is Julie Medina Triana. She's our stormwater coordinator. She helps me with all of these projects. And then on my left is Jason Booth. He's the design engineer with Aldrich and Elliott. Okay, so we've got Jason working on several of these projects in this area. So he's a big asset to us. So next, I just want to go through some of the stormwater terms. So if we talk about these during the course of the program or the presentation, you'll have an understanding of what we're talking about. So a stormwater treatment practice is something that slows down and treats stormwater. That can be one of various things, grass line swells, ditches, infiltration ponds and galleries, gravel wetlands, rain gardens, those kinds of things, various kinds of treatment. So in the case of Clyde Allen Drive, we're looking at putting in a gravel wetland. Okay, and we'll get to those details later. The MS4 permit, you probably hear people talk about the MS4 permit. That's the town's state permit that we have with the Agency of Natural Resources, which is the next one, ANR. So the MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So that's where they get the S4. So we are required to do these projects. We have until like 2036 to get these done. And part of this MS4 permit, we had to do flow restoration plans for Rug Brook and Stevens Brook because of the water quality issues in those two brooks. We had to develop a phosphorus control plan and identify stormwater projects to try and reduce the phosphorus that is getting into Lake Champlain from the erosion of our streams and brooks in town. Next one, VTrans, Vermont Agency of Transportation. Most of the money we get comes from VTrans and from ANR. So those are who we really look for money. And we've had meetings with the state and we've pretty much told them that unless we get some kind of grant to do these projects, they're not happening because there's no way the town can afford to do and pay for all of the projects that need to be done. FRP, the flow restoration plan, I already talked about those a little bit, and the PCP, the phosphorus control plan. O&M will stand for operation and maintenance. It's like, who, after these things are built, who's going to operate and maintain them. With discussions with the select board, it's pretty clear to us that if we take them over like this one and roll it into our MS4 permit, we will be responsible for operating and maintaining it. Because what happens if these things get turned over, at least these big ones that we need to do, if they get turned over to the homeowners don't know what to do. They don't know who to hire to do it. They don't have the money to do it. So I think it's better for everybody involved if we just take over. We don't take over all of them, but it's the ones that we can get phosphorus credit for, and so that we can meet our regulatory requirements concerning the MS4 permit, if that makes sense. The right-of-way, ROW, the town owns a certain amount of right of way, centered across the roads. A lot of work that gets done is done in the right of way off of the edge of the road. Some people ask us about their driveway culverts, and since they're in the right of way, how come we don't maintain those? Well, that's a whole different story. I mean, I'll touch on those here in a second in one of the next coming slides. And then the SASH is called, that's the St. Albans State Highway. That's the connector road from exit 19 down to Route 7, essentially. VTrans owns and maintains that road, but it is a source of stormwater that causes problems in the area. So there's several projects, and I'm going to go through some of the projects that we're working on. So let me touch base on the stormwater utility. So the $50 that everybody pays in really helps us do all these stormwater projects around town. And that's replacing culverts across the roads, maintaining ditches. I mean, the culvert you see in the picture there, that's one that came off of Lower Newton Road. You can see just over time, these old steel culverts just erode. They start to crush, and then we got to fix the road up above them. And there's a lot of them in town, obviously. It also covers salaries for managing all of these projects. Covers a part of my salary, covers Julie's salary, and we use it to pay for our stormwater or our DPW highway crew when they have to do stormwater work in addition to doing the road maintenance. And then the main thing that the money goes towards is local matches for grants. We're always looking for grants to help us do the scoping studies, preliminary and final design engineering, and then for construction. And all of these grants have some level of local match. So a lot of them are 20% local match, and they'll give us 80% of the cost of the project. We have to put in 20%. There's another group, I think that's a 50-50 local match, but like I said, we go for any grant funding that we can because we just can't afford to pay for these on our own. All stormwater related costs. Sometimes we might have to pay for a project solely out of the stormwater fund. I mean, I've got a culvert we need to replace up on French Hill. I was able to get a grant for it, but the terms of the grant was going to make the project last like 3 or 4 years, and the thing is failing today. So we're going to just go ahead and fix that one. We're going to use partially stormwater money and then partially some of the LOT money, the tax. The reason we don't pay for residential culverts is because every property has a license or the ability to access a town road, okay? They have to meet certain requirements by the town. So we tell people how they need to install those culverts so that we know that the culverts are going to be able to allow water to pass. Whether their cars can get over their culverts or not is up to the resident. It's not up to us. So as long as they build them to standards, they'll be fine. But we can't go out there and replace everybody's driveway culverts because a lot of people call us and say, we need you to come out and do our driveway culvert. But you can imagine how many driveway culverts there are out there. And to hire a crew to go out there is probably going to cost, $3,000 or $4,000 every time you try and do something like this. We just can't afford that. So anyway, so that's something about the stormwater utility. So I think the next thing is going to be the project cost. So the good news is when Emily was here, she applied for a grant, and this was a VTrans grant. So we're getting $360,000 in grant money. The latest estimate I had on this project was from about a year ago. I think, Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Back then it was around $510,000, $515,000, whatever. So I'm just assuming that it's going up. I put in $550,000. We couple that with the grant money, and then we're going to take the rest of the money out of the stormwater utility. So it's really not going to cost the residents. And I know that's a good thing because we've got another project going in Tanglewood. I got a different grant for that, and we're doing the same thing there. We're using the grant money to cover that cost, and then the stormwater utility is paying the rest. I do know that there are varying opinions on what we do with the stormwater money that we have. But these stormwater projects we're doing, I see those as a global issue. You know, we're trying to solve issues within the town. It's not just specific to one residential area. You know, granted, they're supposed to be installed to treat water coming off of roofs and driveways and stuff like that. But in all these residential areas, it's not just the runoff off of the roofs and the roads, or off of the roofs and the roads. You know, there's groundwater involved too. And there's, you know, we live on the side of the hill. The whole town is on the side of the hill. So all the water that starts up on the hill to the east of us comes down. It gets channeled underneath I-89, which can be a problem. It gets then channeled under Route 104, 105, and then it gets dumped in all of our residential areas. And that's what we're trying to manage. And when all those projects were going on, nobody was really thinking about development. They were just dumping all the water out into the fields that they could. So now we're trying to back up, catch all that storm water, slow down the erosion that happens, because the erosion that happens in the streams is what causes the phosphorus that is absorbed onto the soil to flow down out into the lake. And then the algae out in the lake says, oh, wow, look at this phosphorus. I love this. And I'm going to become bright and green and pretty, right? So anyway, that's what these projects are about. And that's how we're trying to fund these. So we go to the next one. Oh, I already did. So some of the projects that we've got going on, Tanglewood is in construction right now. We started that the early November. They wrapped up for the winter time just a few weeks ago, and they'll pick that one up probably in April or May, whenever the weather gets better. We've got projects in Gricebrook, at SATEC, the SASH, the St. Albans State Highway, Clyde Allen Drive, this one, of course. We have issues down on Potters Avenue. We've got the East-West Basin Scoping Study. Those are a couple of more projects that we have. The next map will show you the locations of these. That's up on near exit 19 again. And we're trying to catch some of that stormwater before it starts heading down into the city, just so we can slow it down and kind of control the release of it. And then there's another project at the lower part of the SASH where it crosses Route 7. The plan is to put a new gravel wetland down in that area also. And then issues over on Thorpe Avenue and Twin Court and Bradley. And then that, like I said, that Tanglewood area, everything over there is just so wet and the soils don't drain very well. And we're just trying to manage all this stuff. There's a lot of projects. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take time. So we can just do what we can as we get the money. So we've got, right now we had a grant for Gricebrook. Well, we got the grant for Tanglewood. SATEC, I think, has a school grant. Yeah. And then the SASH projects, those are in conjunction with VTrans. And then Clyde Allen Drive, we've got a VTrans grant for this one. Potter Ave will kind of get cleaned up with the Tanglewood project. We've got a grant for doing the East and West Basin Scoping Study. And then I think the city is managing the lower SASH project in the Route 7, but there's issues with all of these projects and all kinds of stuff that we need to deal with to get through these. And then once we get Tanglewood taken care of, we're going to have to try and figure out what we can do with the other Thorpe Avenue, Twin Court, and Bradley. So there's a lot of work out there to do. You know, we're talking tens of millions of dollars here over the next 10 years or so. And if the MS4s are able to meet the 2036 requirement by the state, I'm going to be surprised. I don't know how everybody else is thinking, but that's our goal anyway. So if we look at the next slide, this one shows the red lines are just kind of showing the stormwater runoff down towards the highway and across 104 and 105 there and down into the neighborhood areas. So you can see how, you know, on the right side, the water is just going to flow downhill and right through all of these neighborhoods. And I know people have wet driveways, or I mean, wet basements and all. Hopefully these projects will help to mitigate some of that. It may not, you know, the soils are not that well draining over in there. But anyway, we can only do what we can do. And we've done several studies in the past to identify these projects. So now we're working on getting them done. So the next slide. So this identifies, exactly where some of these projects are. I don't have a pointer that'll work right now, but you can kind of see where Clyde Allen Drive is there, kind of on the bottom of the screen. Yeah, Jason can point those out. And then the east and west basins, those are in preliminary engineering at this point. Grice Brook, we just wrapped up preliminary engineering. We've got some more evaluations to do on some fixes up there. And then it shows the SATEC and then the lower sash up there, and then where Tanglewood is. And then the other one that's on there is the Fairfax Street culvert. So this is just kind of a heads up. We're replacing a culvert on Fairfax Street there. And that's probably going to be this summer. We're going to have to close the road. My guess is it'll probably take a month or so to get that project done. That's the one just to the west of the cemetery there. You know, the road is not too bad right now, but the culvert is completely essentially gone, and it was undersized when it was installed probably 40, 50 years ago, whatever. So we've got it properly sized now, and we just need to get it fixed. Because what happens there is that the water backs up in the backyards, just I guess in front of by Philomena Drive there. So backs up a little bit, and the culvert is too small. So when the water comes out of that culvert, it's coming out at a high velocity and it's starting to erode the bank down there. So that's a problem right there, and getting the soils to get into the water and then flowing downhill into the lake. So now we can start talking about the Clyde Allen Drive specific project. So this project is going to pretty much deal with the, I guess, the southern part of the development, because we're going to be collecting the stormwater from the, I guess, the end of the horseshoe piece. The gravel wetland is going to be constructed just to the north of the Vermont State Housing Authority building there, and it's a grassy area right now. I mean, it's partly wetland right now as it is. And then we're going to go between a couple of backyards there, and we're going to catch some of the water from the eastern side of Clyde Allen over there. And then we're going to pipe it across the backyards and then into our gravel wetland on the other side. And so there'll be some new catch basins installed in there. We're going to install a catch basin in the middle of or right between the two roads there to catch that stormwater. One thing this project is not going to fix, because I know I've been contacted by people on both sides of the brook there, is I believe that when the developer, at least what I've gotten from speaking with people there, when the developer put these houses in, they tied the stormwater lines together into a central line that goes down the middle of the houses there. We're not going to be able to fix any problems with there. And I think one guy mentioned he's got a collapsed pipe in there and he thinks it was backing up or something, and it used to daylight into the brook. So that's something that the homeowners would have to get together and try and fix. And it's the same thing on the other side. I think the pipes collapsed. I'm not sure they used the best pipes when they put them in there, and they collapse and they back up. So like I said, that's going to be a homeowner's issue to deal with that. Just a second, I'll get
questions on the end, please.
So one thing that the state is struggling with, just like we are too, is that the lack of homeowners associations. They didn't realize that a lot of these places didn't have homeowners associations, and it's going to be difficult to make people have a homeowners association. We are not going to be requiring anybody to put together a homeowners association for this. The only thing I would like is somebody to step up and be a person of contact so that we can have them come to meetings and help relay information back to the residents. But like I said, it's not going to be we don't need an HOA to this. You know, I think when Emily was still here, the thought of everybody and what everybody was trying to do was make the cost of these things be based on the percent impervious, right? So the homeowners own the roofs and the driveways, and the town owns the roads, and then you come up with a percentage, you're based on the total acreage, and then you pay this much and this guy pays this much, kind of thing. But we decided not to do that. And that's why we're going after all these grants and then using our stormwater utility. So, in the other scenario, if you got everybody paying, you got to put together special assessment districts, you're billing everybody separately, and it could just become difficult. So the next drawing here shows, this came out of it was the phosphorus control plan or the flow restoration plan. This, on the bottom left, is the Vermont State Housing Authority's property, and then it shows where the gravel wetland is. This was just a concept plan, but we're beyond that now. We're about ready to put this out to bid. We'll talk about schedule here shortly. And then I guess the next one, Julie, if you even go to the next one. Okay, so this shows more of a design plan along Clyde Allen Drive. So at the top of the screen, you can see the road in there. It's got the dotted texture in there. Vermont State Housing Authority is on the top of that. So you can see where the gravel wetland is going to be installed or constructed. And then you can also see where the line is going to go between the backyard or through the backyards to the eastern leg, I guess, of Clyde Allen Drive. The gravel wetland will consist of a forebay. A lot of the water is going to go into the forebay. The sediment will settle out and it'll go into the gravel wetland itself. There will be structures in there to monitor and maintain the level of water in there, so that when it gets to a certain level, it will drain out and then go into the brook. And it's got an overflow feature in there too, that if there's more water that it can hold, it will just automatically flow out into the brook. And the rest of these are just kind of design plans. We do intend to put a fence around it to keep some of the kids out if necessary. We don't want this to be like an 8-foot tall fence with barbed wire. That's not what we're after. I think it's more going to be just a 4-foot fence, right? Yeah, so a little bit bigger fence, and we'll put signs on there for, hopefully the kids will read it, that say, don't climb the fence or something like that. And there will be a gate in there for us to be able to get our equipment in there to maintain it. We'll have to get in there every few years to cut out the vegetation. We might have to completely hog it out. It just depends on the kind of flows that it gets. And don't really need all those details. So as far as schedule goes, so Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only permit we're waiting on right now is the A&R wetlands permit. Yep, and once we get that, then we'll be ready to get this out to bid. And we're hoping that we get it soon so that we can get out to bid and get construction done this year. I'm just making a guess that this thing will probably take us maybe 3 months to build, plus or minus. So you'll see a lot of us out there during this time. And I think that's the last that I had to talk about. So I'm open to questions. Sir in the back, yes.
What would your
Sorry, but can you sit there so people in the Zoom can hear you? Sorry.
I just wondered what your plan would be as you're putting your new underground in, if you run into one of these existing drains that are tied together.
I think where the project is at, it's on the south side. So if we run into, if anything, we'll just run into one of those, right? So if we discover it, we would certainly do what we can to open it up. Because right now, it's not even visible down there. Nobody really knows where it is.
Right, I'm assuming that when you dig across there, excuse me, that you're gonna find it.
I'm sure we will find it. And
Yeah.
at that point, we're not going to just leave it as it is. We will try and fix it and make it better. Yeah.
And would it possibly, would you tie it into the system that you're doing?
No, we would make it so it flows out into the brook. Because I believe, and again, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, the size of this gravel wetland is based on the amount of impervious that we're going to get off of the roads and the driveways and the road and the roofs. It's not going to be designed for groundwater to go, because that might collect groundwater in there too. You just, those, I think from what I was told, it sounds like it's only Schedule 40 PVC, which is the small white pipe, the thin walled white pipe that's not very strong. And I think one of the gentleman back there thought that it might have even collapsed further up than where it daylights out at the brook.
So the storm, culverts that you're putting in are solid, they're just gonna
Oh, yeah,
they're not picking up any groundwater as they go.
that's correct. Where the intent is not to pick up groundwater. Yep, you're welcome. During these projects, things change all the time, and we have to be, we have to address things as they do, because, we'll definitely call dig safe. They're not going to have any way to mark this kind of line out there. If we run, we at least know that it's out there somewhere. And if we hit it, we'll get some materials and fix it. That's typically what we have to do, so. I think the good news was it wasn't going to cost anything, right? I always figured as soon as I said that, everybody's going to get up and leave. Yes.
What's the cost? And I'll be honest. So we're really thankful for that. We
Yep.
appreciate that work. If you can flip back to that map for a second, of the Clyde Allen map.
The design
The
plan,
one with the red overlay.
This
Yep,
one?
that
yeah, okay,
All right, so the section that's going between the east and western sides of the loop
yes.
is going to be a buried culvert and not like a
The-
ditch. It's gonna be like a sunken culvert.
There will be a catch basin on the east side of the road, a catch basin right in the middle, and then it's going to go over to a catch basin on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
Sort of flip forward a couple drawings, I think it showed it. Go back one. So this is the east side, and there's a catch basin in the ditch line,
Yeah,
and then there's a catch basin in the middle,
or and the western side as well.
and then there's one on the western side as well. But this is all very tight, it goes across.
And everything north of that is gonna continue to run down the existing swales and just dump directly into the stream.
So these catch basins here
Yeah.
are intended to pick up what comes
From the
down the
horseshoe.
ditch line
Yeah,
on the horseshoe.
right, but from that point,
Right by
continuing,
Fairfax Street.
continuing to Fairfax
That's
Street.
right.
is gonna
Yeah.
Just gonna
go where it's normally going.
That's right.
So nothing on the little brook that crosses on just past the first, commercial building there. There's a
So-
box culvert.
So where the Rug Brook crosses
Right.
is sort of the divider. So everything south of that will go to the gravel wetland. Everything north of that will continue to flow back towards the Rug Brook.
And just, you won't be doing anything with the box culvert.
No,
That's correct.
So then everything from the northern apartment complex is just gonna continue to go straight down in it.
that's right.
Right.
Mhm.
So if there's some ditching that needs to be done, the ditching would be done by Public Works. So if we need to do something to improve the ditching to get it to go into those catch basins, we would do that after the project is done. Because that, the ditches in the right of way belong to the town. Driveways don't, but the ditches
Right.
do.
Well, currently, I'll talk is the last one on the ditch line before the street.
Okay,
So when we get, heavy drainage from everything, the ditch that is currently there isn't deep enough to control it, and usually we'll go down through and then just go across our yard like a waterfall. Which we're heavily planned that it doesn't do any damage, it's just a swamp during that time. But if all this is being redirected, it probably won't need to be reditched. Cause that should divert most of where it gets to that point.
we can look at that. It won't be a part of this project, but we can look at that as Public Works.
I think we only require for you guys is to get the person to sign all of this because we need to do the agreement to clean it out in the maintenance in the long run. But we need a person to be with us and sign all of these documents.
Not for the pond itself and not for the swales. Correct.
Right, the swales are on us to do.
And us, yeah.
And we will be taking over the maintenance of this gravel wetland.
Yeah. But we need a person to,
Yeah.
just to be sure with all the legal documents.
But we'll have more information on that as the
Mhm.
project progresses, so. Well, there's a document for us incorporating the stormwater, the expired stormwater permit of the development into the MS4. So somehow that's got to be signed, and we're working with our attorneys on the proper documents for that. And it's, like I said, it allows us to take over the expired stormwater permit that you have. I don't know when it expired, probably 20 or
Yeah.
30 years ago. I live in a development here too, and it expired like early 90s, I think. I don't know. So, but it's just one of those legal things we're going to need. As far as the maintenance goes, we've got easements from the 3 property owners that we need for going behind or through the backyards. And then we've got the easement from the Vermont State Housing Authority. So we have both construction or temporary construction easements, and then we have operation and maintenance agreements as part of those, or easements, yeah. Yes,
Get your map, it's only gonna affect a few different homeowners where you're gonna be doing the construction.
yes,
You already got easements. from-
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes, we do. And they signed off on the Act 250 administrative amendment that we needed. There's three properties. There's the 2 residents and then Vermont State Housing Authority in their backyard.
these 2 residents and here.
And that was really the only place we have to build this project. If we couldn't have got the easement from them, this wouldn't be happening at all. And I think, if I remember right, we're getting over 2.5 kilograms of phosphorus credit per year for this project. 2.6 or something like that.
Such a critical site.
Yeah. We have to meet like 60 something kilograms of phosphorus reduction per year. It comes from everywhere. I mean, yes, yeah. It does. It comes from everywhere. It's in organic material. It's in the leaves that fall down. So a lot of times people rake their leaves into the ditches, and that's not a good thing. Because the worst thing is that it plugs up the culverts. And then they call us and say, hey, the culvert's plugged. And it's like, well, click, exactly. So anyway. Anything else?
I'm assuming any liability insurance of that nature on itself will also be with you guys.
Yep. Town has a big insurance policy.
Your construction timeline was hopefully sometime in the summer or fall.
Yes, probably, at this point, probably mid to late summer into the fall, I'm guessing. No, we're gonna make sure it's completed by the winter, right? We can put contract end dates in these projects. So we would probably say it needs to be done by September 30th or October 30th or something like that. Just require them to get it done. Yes. A rendering? Um,
We do, but we don't have the pictures here. Um,
We'll have one that I can get to quickly for the screen. Well, It's essentially a pond, okay? So
Yeah,
the pond is gonna have, a rim around it. And it'll be grass lined. So it'll look like grass there. And then we will have wetland plants growing in the middle. I can't, so, yes, with frogs and birds and stuff, yes. Yes, right behind the softball
Mhm.
fields. Yep.
mhm.
It'll be,
The fence around.
it'll be probably better maintained than the pond at the complex.
Right.
There's a lot of phragmites in there, which hopefully we'll be able to avoid in this particular application. And so as part of the design, there will be specific wetland seed and wetland plantings that will go in there. And then there's obviously operation and maintenance that's done by the town to hopefully keep those invasives out of there. So it'll be hopefully a little bit different with maintenance than what you see at the complex. But the gravel, when you refer to the gravel's actually below grade essentially. And on top of the gravel layer, which is 2 to 3 feet deep, there's about an 8-inch thick layer of what we call wetland muck. And then on top of that is where the wetland seed and the growth goes. So it actually becomes, on the surface, you'll see plantings and grasses and those types of things.
It'll go out to bid as soon as we get the wetlands permit. And that depends on the state. Because we've been in touch with them several times, right?
Yes. I have some photos of other gravel wetlands. If anybody wants to take a look, I don't think I can connect to here, but certainly.
No, I'm actually good. That was in my mind and instead of imagining like we stayed gravel.
So,
Fence around it. That's what it sounded
so
like.
Julie, if you go back to the presentation, some of those pictures we had in there were of Tanglewood being constructed. So that one right there where Julie is standing, that's over behind Tanglewood. And I think there's another picture in there too, Julie, one of those. I thought it was in there.
No,
Maybe it's at the end.
Not
That
this
one right there. That's the gravel in the gravel wetland before the wetland swale goes on.
So are they gonna do this like all at the same time, or are they gonna do like the two homeowner parts
So that's the.
first and then work on
So that could flow
the
out of.
the part of
That-
the steakhouse, or are they gonna be all machines and everything all at once?
So the means and methods of construction are up to the contractor. So he gets the plans, this is what he has to build. He determines what works out best for him, whether he starts between the two houses or if he does the gravel wetland first. If I were him, I would do the gravel wetland first to get that in place before you tie something into it to run water into it. Because you want to make sure downstream can accept whatever is upstream before. So that would be my guess, but it'll be up to the contractor. Working hours, I don't let them start before 7 o'clock in the morning, so they can't turn on any equipment before 7. I'd be okay with 6, but I'm sure the rest of the people would. And my guess is they'll work, 10-hour days at least during the summer, just to get it done.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So it's not finding funding.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's what Dave does, yes. When's your last day of work, Steve? April 30th, okay.
Dave used to work at the town hall, but he brought in millions of dollars in grant. It's a big resource.
Yeah. Put Luke down? Okay. Well, you know, I thought Luke would be a good contact, but I wasn't gonna. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Well, if that's it,
Thank you.
have a nice evening. Thank you.
Yeah.
Softball coach, Alpina talks about all the.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'll be, it's good. I hope she comes back.
Yeah, I do too. I think she will. She's not playing basketball, but she loves playing softball.
That's what I like to hear.
Thank you very much.